The Colts once again seemingly have outsmarted the rest of the NFL, and this time it might surprise you on a deal that was done a couple months ago. What's going on? I'm Elijah with Sports Talk Indy, where we cover all things Colts every single day, and we're breaking down what seemingly happened today, which was that the Houston Texans have signed Nico Collins to a massive contract extension, and it looks as though the Indianapolis Colts got the best of deal of the bunch with this. So today, Nico Collins signed a 3-year, $72.5 million deal with an average salary of $24.5 million and a signing bonus of $17 million. $52 million guaranteed. Elijah, why are you bringing this up? Why this is the Texans? Why does this even matter? Because it's seemingly very close to what the Colts signed Michael Pittman to. Michael Pittman signed a 3-year, $70 million guaranteed, so he actually is making less money than Nico Collins. He's signed 3 years, $70 million, $23.3 million, signing bonus of $15 million, guaranteed a signing, total guaranteed $46 million. So why is this important? Because this now means that every single AFC South team has signed a wide receiver to a massive deal worth close to $70 million or more, in this case, the Tennessee Titans. And I don't think any of them are going to have the same production quality as Michael Pittman Jr. So Michael Pittman Jr., we know, signed that 3-year, $70 million deal, has a cap hit of $18 million this year. And the dude's great. I'm so thankful that Michael Pittman is on our team. He's our wide receiver one. We're continuing to build a team around him, which I think is awesome. But here, since 2020, we're going to negate the 2020 season because he was a rookie. He still had 503 yards on 40 receptions, which I think is incredible. But look at the production since then, and remember the quarterback situation that Michael Pittman's in. 2021, that's Carson Wentz here. Games played, 17. Games started, 17. Snaps, he played 980 snaps. He played 88% of snaps. He had 88 receptions for 1,082 yards and 6 receiving touchdowns. 2022, that's the Matt Ryan year, the year we all try and forget. 16 games played, 16 games started. He had 1,000 snaps. 92.5% or 90.5% of snaps, 99 receptions, and 925 yards on a year that we all want to forget. It statistically was one of the worst years in Colts history for receiving touchdowns. Last year, partially Gardner Minshew, partially Anthony Richardson, he had 16 games played, 15 games started, 991 snaps, 86.3 snaps percentage, 109 receptions, so an all-time high in receptions, and 1,152 yards for receiving touchdowns. Now, that is consistent production from a guy in one of the worst offensive situations of all time that we can remember of recent history. This is you were talking about something that the Colts have been a laughingstock because of the quarterback carousel that we've been in for a number of years. And yet, he's had 1,000-yard seasons in every single year. This isn't even factoring in receiving. He does great in that, does great pass blocking, and he's just a natural leader. Michael Pittman has been everything you want. The closest example I have to him and his consistency is like Mike Evans level. So let's look at the other teams in the AFC South, because I think it's very, very important to note. Nico Collins, who wasn't even in a contract year, 2021 played 8 games started, 536 snaps, only played 59% of snaps, 33 receiving receptions for 446 yards, 1 touchdown. 2022 played 7 starts, 10 games played, 442, only played 50% of snaps, 37 receptions for 481. So slight increase. I will give you that. He increased 44 yards total and 2 receiving touchdowns instead of 1. And then this is the year that they're judging this entire thing off of. And that's last year, where he still only started 10 games. He had 668 snaps, only still played 58% of snaps, 80 receptions for 1,297 yards. And you had one of the best quarterback situations to walk into with C.J. Stroud and 8 receiving touchdowns. Obviously, a couple of those coming against the Colts, whatever. This, I think, is so important because he just got a better deal than Michael Pittman on a non-contract year when he's had 1 year to know. And of course, he also had a bad quarterback situation. He had Davis Mills for the first 2 years of his career. He's had injuries. He's had all that stuff. I will give him that. But the Colts signed Michael Pittman to a $24 million a year deal. Or actually less than that. It was a $23.3 million deal. And Michael Pittman's been the like degree of consistency. I mean, yeah, you can't blame a guy for injuries, but at some point you got to factor it into the contract. So let's look at the other teams, because I think it's important not just to note that the Houston Texans, I think, kind of botched this one. But let's look at the other teams, because the Tennessee Titans also have been one to overspend on wide receivers. And this year, I think they don't get away with it any different. They had a 4-year, $92 million deal with an average salary of $23 million, a signing bonus of $20 million, and a guaranteed signing $46.9 million. Guaranteed 50 total guaranteed $1 million for Calvin Ridley, who has been really good, but not the degree of consistency that you would want. Played for Atlanta for 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. Only played 5 games, or he started 5 games twice in his career. Last year, he started every single game. He played 85% of snaps, which is great. Still had less receiving yards than Michael Pittman. Still had less receiving touchdowns. Still had less receptions than Michael Pittman Jr. And he's on his age 30 season. So you're talking about a guy who I don't think you would qualify him as being better than Michael Pittman Jr., and yet they paid an insane price tag. 4 years, $92 million. They're paying him essentially the same amount of money, but they're paying him until he's 20 or until he's 34 years old. I can't imagine how this breaks down. Again, statistically, he's just a much worse wide receiver. They also have DeAndre Hopkins on that roster who didn't live up to the expectation. He had one really, really good game, and then it was just kind of like the rest of the season. And then I also have Treylon Burks, who's underperformed. So you're talking about overpaying for underperforming guys. The Tennessee Titans look no further than that. And again, the Houston Texans one kind of baffles me even more, because they got a guy who's consistently out with injuries, who's had leg problems, who's had just consistent injury problems. But you're also looking at a guy who they just brought in, Stephon Diggs. So I don't know what this means as far as like why they did this the way they did it, but whatever. But then we also look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, who again seemingly overpay for wide receivers constantly. And last year they did it with Christian Kirk, who they signed from Atlanta. Didn't sign him for as much money as what the Colts signed the rest of these guys for, but again, statistically has not had a really great season. 2022 was his best season with Jacksonville. He started 17 games. He played 88% of snaps, which is incredible. That's good for him. And he signed, he had 1,100 yards. Last year he had 787 yards. But you're just talking about he signed a 4-year, $72 million deal, which is not as much as these other 3 wide receivers that we put in the degree of like $20 million. Still an insane amount of money to be paying for a guy who honestly has not been performing. So I think when you look at all of this, and we've been critical of what the Colts have done and how much they've spent in this offseason and how much they haven't spent, and they're re-signing their own guys and how frustrating that was. You look at situations like this and you're like, well, thank God that we didn't overspend for Michael Pittman Jr., who I think we could have. I think we could have signed him to a much bigger deal, because I think that even just the degree of what he's had to go through to get to this point, I think he's worth every penny that we got. And again, for the leadership that we get from Michael Pittman Jr., it just shows the Colts aren't all bad. And the Colts they're not as dumb in the front office as maybe we'd like to believe that they are. But I really think that they got away with highway robbery. And you look at guys, I mean, this is just the AFC South that we're isolating here, but you're looking at teams constantly overpaying for wide receivers who are not producing at the degree that we've seen from wide receiver 1 in the worst quarterback situations in the NFL. I mean, last year, to look at your career and say my best years were Carson Wentz and Gardner Minshew is insane. And so, yeah, props to Michael Pittman for sticking it through all that, but also, this is just an incredible testament of what the Colts are able to do, that they're building a culture that's going to be sustainable and that they're going to win a lot of games with this, even just the attitude being changed, and good for him. I'm so glad that he's getting his dues, but man, The rest of the league is overpaying for guys who are underperforming. And I think, like I said, Mike Evans would be the closest comparison to a guy who's just constantly catching balls. Not going to be your quickest guy, not going to be your fastest guy, but he's going to be a guy that's going to get stuff done. And it's going to be super encouraging. So, so if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. We're releasing new videos every single day about everything going on in the Colts camp. We're in OTAs, we're in minicamp season, we're in all that. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.